Welcome back to Ion Radio. I'm John.
And I'm Ken. And today we've got a fun data link episode. John, we've got some special guests with us today.
Yes, we do. We're going to be launching a brand new venture into the Armada world. What do we have going on?
So we're going to be doing a new podcast, and I'm going to introduce our two hosts of the show, and they're going to talk a little bit about it. So one of them needs just a little bit of introduction here, and that is Garrett, who a lot of you already know as Admiral Tater. And then Ryan is going to be the other host of the show. So Ryan, Garrett, welcome to Ion Radio.
Hey, thanks for getting us on to this podcast partnership.
We're excited.
I believe this was the brainstorm of you guys, so tell me what your thoughts on the podcast is.
Sure. So our podcast name is going to be Command Stack, first of all. And it's going to be an Armada podcast. It's going to be focused on tournaments. We've been involved in the community for quite a long time now. But we want to talk about organized play in Armada and what's happening and get the news out there about what people are flying. So we're going to be taking a look at tournament lists. We're going to be taking a look at what does well in tournaments. What are the type of archetypes that are doing well? And so we want to definitely explore and just kind of inform the community of what's doing well. So people, or what's not doing well, for instance, and give people a sense of what's out there, because really importantly, in a month from now, the first AMG organized Armada play event is going to be happening at Adepticon. So it's the perfect time to get involved in the tournament scene and talk about what's happening. So that's kind of the main focus of the podcast. We'll also talk about news in Armada. Anything that comes out, we're going to talk about, whether it's development news, product news, anything like that. We're here for just to kind of keep the community up to date on what's going on with the game.
And so, Garrett, how do you and Ryan know each other?
Hey, so Ryan and I are both actually from Kentucky, and he started playing the game a little bit earlier than I did, but we met each other at a store championship where we were one of 3 people who showed up. And,
so top 3, right?
Basically. Oh yeah, guaranteed victory right there. But we met there, and we've been playing in Kentucky ever since. I think that was, I believe, 2018, so a little while now, and we've seen the game change a lot, obviously, and now it's finally going to enter a new age here with this grand championship at Adepticon kicking off the organized play.
Okay. Ryan, when did you get into Armada?
So I got in right after the flotilla nerf happened. For not to bring up bad memories for anyone who was flying 3 or 5 GR75s or whatnot, but I got in right after that. So I only have 2 GR75s. So I got in right after that, and I've been playing ever since. Love tournaments. It's kind of a new thing for Wargaming for me to go to tournaments. And then about 2 years ago, I started playing online. So I discovered the TTS module to play online, and now I'm one of the moderators for the TTS Discord, and I run a lot of tournaments. I run quite a few of the online tournaments in conjunction with some other guys as well to keep the community going internationally. Let's just say.
Nice. So I actually have no experience with doing any online Armada play. I know that there's 2 main versions. There's the Vassal, and then there's the TTS versions. And you're big into the TTS, is that right? Or do you use both, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I use TTS. I think I've watched a lot of Vassal games, is the other one. They're both great. It just really comes down to personal preference on what you like. One is more of a top-down, traditional 2D version, and TTS is a 3D version. There's a big debate in the community about which one's better or whatnot. I don't try to get involved in that, but I run the TTS one, so
clearly that one's better for you.
Run. Yeah, so
it looks more fun.
Yeah. How about you?
Both great. They're both great, and they both have good communities too. And I've met some people in Armada through playing on TTS that I would never have dreamed of playing. Just in my local Kentucky scene. I played international players all the time, and it's good. They think about the game differently than I did. So I've learned a lot.
Yeah. Ken, which one have you used in the past?
I've actually used both. So the Vassal one, I found that we've had a couple players and fans of the Iron Radio show that have been able to work and play with them over Vassal, and a couple other members on our Discord kind of conned me in a fun way. They didn't really twist my arm. They're like, "Hey, come check this out on TTS." I'm like, "Wow, this is fun! Like, let's do a tournament," and together. I'm like, "Okay." So I've actually used both. I think what's neat is TTS it's more of a tabletop experience to an extent because you can see the miniatures on there. But I think when you're looking at something like Vassal, it's a little bit more precise, and you get that top-down view, which is a different way of playing, and you can be a little bit more precise with some of your movements. And I know there's a couple times in a few games, John, where you and I have played that I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. And if I would have walked to the other side of the table, clearly it was a good shot. So
that's not a few times. That happens like every single game. I'm like, that's not going to land. And you're like, it's 100%. I'm like, oh, no, not at all.
It's funny how playing online messes with your spatial awareness when you finally get on a table. With the pandemic, I was pretty much had only played online for about a year, at least. And then I finally got in a table in an in-person tournament. And not to mention my back was physically sore from having to stand up the whole time. And, I wasn't prepared for that. But your perceptions are different. So it is a slightly different experience for sure.
Okay, Garrett, how about you? Have you used either or?
Yeah, so I used Vassal once, and I did not enjoy the experience of looking top-down 2D at it. But I did try TTS. I think it's amazing as a simulator because the models are there, the dice are there, the cards, the whole game's there, and it runs really well. I don't personally love using it. I like the physical game.
Hold on.
Oh.
Zoom is giving me a gift right now. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Zoom.
Great.
Pops up right in the middle of this. We should probably just leave that in because it's super funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
continue.
Unlimited upgraded Zoom now.
Yeah.
So anyways, TTS is great and it looks good, like I was saying, but I like the physical game itself. But Ryan's really right about how different it is because you click a button and you have a 360-degree firing arc that shows you close, medium, and long all at once, and that's a huge spatial awareness of what you're going to do next, what the enemy can do next.
Also, time saver.
And the time saver, yeah, because you're not measuring around.
Because you guys don't see it on Ion in between each. Usually it's turn. It's just me frantically going with my ruler like this, measuring everything.
Right.
Doing all the math in my head of that ship is there, that ship is there. And then sometimes you land on the station and that keel that's on the ship and it just makes it spin. So you hold it still and you do all the measuring to everything real fast. You're like, that's medium before it spins. That's in range before it spins, just to mark it. You don't have to worry about that then.
Right. And another key difference is the maneuver tool. Like an actual physical armada, you can't place the tool on the ship until you're ready to make that move. But in TTS, you can measure where you're going to go basically to the precise of when you're guesstimating because the model already has it and you're not floating above or next to it. So it makes maneuvering easier. I struggle with it on there and in person. But I do know that's two big differences, the maneuver tool and the range sticks. But TTS is great. And I think it's awesome that, the communities, in Italy and Poland and Ireland and the United States can all play together. And it's not possible before this, but I'm pro TTS, but I don't play it much.
Gotcha.
I just want to make one plug for TTS. We have new player tournaments from time to time. So if you're out there and you're a new player and you've never played in a tournament before, we have them. We'll do them, a couple times a year. We just recently did one. We had 30 new players.
Wow.
Who qualified, new to the game, new player tournaments. So, it's part of my effort to always try to help grow the game a little bit.
Okay, so because this podcast is supposed to be centered on mainly tournaments, so let's talk about our war chest of medals from the different types of tournaments that we've been in. Who would like to start? Anyone? I mean, I could just go.
I'll go first
Go
because
ahead.
it's easy.
Okay.
I've been in a handful of store tournaments and won nothing except for a couple cards. And I think the biggest tournament that I've actually been into, it was the last one that was held right before the pandemic. That was the one in Gurnee. And I placed somewhere, I think it was 30 some odd players. I was up in the mid 20s. To be fair, though, my very first game was against Nathan Coda, and I started out with a 10-1 won. So I don't know if that's really a fair, but I will say that I had a blast playing Nathan, and he was the nicest guy that really gave me a good whooping.
Yes. Yeah, Nathan will table you in like not even like it's like a brutal tabling, and he's the nicest person. You don't even feel bad. You're like, oh yeah, okay, thanks for killing my ships.
Yeah.
My experience with Nathan, I was part of a playtester group that may or may not have been under him. I never got to play a game against him because of distance. But my experience with him is I drove him to McDonald's at Worlds after the long day, and then drove him back to the hotel, and we just talked Armada the whole time. So he's a really nice, great guy.
Yeah, for the listeners out there who don't know, Nathan Goda, Chicago player, 2018 world champion, I think runner-up in Worlds before then as well. So just incredible player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Okay, so I'll go next. So I've gone to a handful of regionals. I've been to Indy, a couple in Chicago, back to Indy. My first tournament was right before the Flotilla nerf, so I think my fleet was something crazy because the Kuat wasn't out yet, and I wanted a Black Dice ISD, so it was like a ISD 1 with like 4 flotillas and then as many Imperial Aces as I could cram in there. And I think it was Sloan. I think she had just come out. That was where my love relationship with Sloan started. So that was my first tournament. And then one of the local stores that I went to is where Can't Get Your Ship Out plays. So I went there and got obliterated week in, week out, but I learned a lot because that's how you learn Armada is losing. And then I went around like the circuit one year. I almost made it to every single major tournament in the year. I've been out to LVO. I placed decent there. I lost to the people that were in the top 4. If I would have won that game, I would have been in the top 4. I went out to Nova. I placed pretty well out there. I don't remember what my placing is, sorry. And then I've also placed in Worlds in the top 20-ish, the last Worlds. So that day was a bad day for me. Like, I lost every major game day 2 brutally. But
But you made the cut.
oh yeah, I made the cut. I made the cut into day 2, and that was important. And then round 1 of day 2, I faced Truthiness. I think it's Truthiness is his name,
Yeah.
right? His CR90 engine tech slicer spam Radis fleet before Radis was nerfed and engine tech was nerfed, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. My entire fleet was dead. Thanks for playing. It was like a 25-minute match. It was pretty brutal. But I was there, and I scored enough points between 3 rounds to place in like the top 20. So that's kind of it for me. I was going to go to a bunch of tournaments, and then, COVID happened. So my plan was to just continue on going to tournaments, and then I can't go to any. And then now, like, I'm still not going to probably go for a while, just let COVID die down. But that's kind of where I have... Usually where I place is right under wherever the cool stuff is that they hand out. Like if it's a top 8 and you get acrylics, I place 9th. If it's top 16 and you get something really fantastic like dice, 17th. That's how I've placed in most of my tournaments. So either 9th or 17th. That's usually my range inside there. Okay, Garrett, let's...
I'll go next. So I got into Armada in 2018, and then I tried to hit everything in my area in 2019. But I was still a really new player when I was going to these things like Gen Con and Nova. And so it was amazing to see people play that had been playing the game for like 4 years at that point. So I was either like mid-tier or down at the bottom. But those were great to go to. And then, of course, 2020 happened, so all the plans for that went out the window. I've been to a couple regionals, never do quite amazing at those. I find myself, I spend too much time preparing some of the stuff to bring to it more than I end up playing, making the war chest, it might seem at times. But yeah, I mean, I want to get more into tournaments as this year comes up. So now that they're getting back out, I'm excited to go to tournaments and have a bunch more experience now than when I first started.
Sounds great. And Ryan, how about yourself?
Well, I will hit all the regionals in Kentucky when we have them, and so we had 2 the last time, which was pretty good for us. The biggest tournament I've ever been to in person was Gen Con in 2019. I like to, something about me is I like to fly non-meta stuff. I like to fly my own stuff. So I remember taking Kraken. This is pre 1.5, so Kraken, there's like 2 other people in the tournament who were flying Kraken, so it's not like an A tier, S tier type of admiral. So I like to kind of try to make stuff work that doesn't that's not the most popular thing. So I usually fly Rebel Rogues almost always at a big tournament, and then online I play in all of our big tournaments that we have. And probably my best finish was in our team tournament that we had last year. I think our team Tanaki, which had 1 Tennessee guy and 3 Kentucky people. We got like 4th or 5th in a tournament of like 20 international teams. So it was a good place for that.
Very nice.
Was that the ITC team tournament?
That sure is. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that was a fun one. That was the one online tournament that I got into. Forgot to mention that one. So.
Yeah, you play.
Yeah, that happens in June. It's a cool concept where you have 4 team members, and then you pair up by country or region or kind of a geographical location, and you play rounds and there's a type of system of pairings that's kind of based on Warhammer 40K team pairings. It's pretty much just exactly drawn from there, and it's just a different way of doing a tournament format. And it was pretty successful. We had 80 players in the tournament, and Canada won our inaugural tournament. So if anyone wants to dethrone the Canadians, that tournament will be coming up in June. So.
Very nice. So you mentioned Warhammer. Before Armada, were you into any other war time type games or miniature games at all?
Yeah. So I when I grew up in my teens, I played a lot of BattleTech or some RPGs with miniatures, or there was a Star Trek game at the time too. And then I took like kind of a 15-year break, and then I got back into it with Lord of the Rings. Games Workshop does a Lord of the Rings game, and so I started playing that and collecting them and just sinking a ton of money into the miniatures. And I loved that, and so I was playing a Lord of the Rings game at my hobby store one day and saw X-Wing, and so I was like, that's pretty cool. I like X-Wing. What's that all about? And so I bought into X-Wing, and then like a month later they went to X-Wing 2.0.
Oh no.
I just had no sense of what was going on in the community, and that's when I switched to Armada right then after, because I haven't left since.
Good. How about you, Garrett?
So Armada was the game that got me into miniature gaming. I saw the ships and I was like, oh wow, this looks interesting, especially how well they're detailed and modeled. And I jumped in, and then I've expanded into some of the other ones, but Armada's still my favorite one, especially how it was pre-painted. It was just all hobby time, no painting time.
Correct.
So that's been that, and then I have a hard time getting into other miniature games now because Armada was so easy to just start playing. You just get out the rule book and it was ready to go out of the box.
Yes, it is. For myself, before this, my first real competitive style game is I played Star Trek Attack Wing. I've always been a huge Star Trek fan, which is terrible for an Armada podcast, but I played that, and one of the local stores actually just moved closer to it. They used to have a weekly, they had this big campaign and to win Deep Space Nine, and I ended up playing that, and I was like heavily involved on like the online forums and things like that. So that's right before Armada came out, and I really enjoyed it. I think I won almost like everything. I was like Ryan said, I like just made weird lists, and no one knew what to do with it because it wasn't meta. You couldn't find it online anywhere. Like no, you couldn't like net plan for it. And then I would lay like weird traps. I called it, one of my fleets was like the hyperspace trap fleet. And everyone at the time was playing Klingons. And the way it works is when you're cloaked, you don't have shields. But you get like extra green defense dice if anyone's familiar with X-Wing. But these mines, if you land on a mine or have a mine dropped on you, you don't get any defense dice. And you don't have any shields. So most of the Klingon ships only had like 3-4 health, and I would be attacking them with 5 mines at a time. So I would just sit there. They would try to run into me to, joust, and I would just jump right over them, laying mines, and the game would be over in 3 turns. And everyone's like, what is this? So like that's where I got that itch of fleet building and being competitive. But that game died out.
Sounds a bit like a certain LVO list, mine-heavy list.
Yes, right? We'll be talking about that on our first episode. So, yes, very much so. How about you, Ken?
Oh, well, I got my start with Armada. At the time, I was playing a lot of X-Wing. Was doing stuff in stores. Wasn't, great at it, but it wasn't bad. So it was, figure, mid-tier level player. Got all the information when FFG was releasing it for Armada and jumped in head first. And played locally with a couple friends, on the tabletop. Got into it a little bit, like, wow, this is really neat, but I need to learn to play it more. So dabbled around with it through the time Corellian conflict showed up. That kind of came into play, and that kind of reinvigorated Armada for me. And oddly enough, it was within a few months, I think, John, that's when you and I met at the store in Oak Lawn. And when that store closed, I kind of shelved Armada for a while. New store opened up, and then started playing there. And then, it wasn't much long after that, maybe a year tops, if that. No, actually, I think was it that year, John, that we started?
We did. As soon as the store closed, we started the channel.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're... so I've been playing Armada at an interesting level since then. And wanted to get into the tournament scene, but COVID happened, and so I'm not going to make Epticon this year, but looking forward to other tournaments that I can enter in down the road. But I'm really excited, actually, from an Armada standpoint, to see what we're going to wind up doing, on the channel in seasons to come, and what you guys are going to be doing with us and Command Stack. But if you really want to go back, taking a step further, if you look, I've got a couple really old war games back over here from the 80s, and some of them even from the late 70s. So I've been playing war games of one type or another for a very long time.
Yeah. Ken's old.
Yeah.
No problem. That's what I'm here for. As your host, I have to say that. Okay, so I think that's a quick introduction of who we are, what we are with Armada, and what we have for the podcast planned. So, Ryan or Garrett, let's talk about a quick overview what people could expect us to talk about on the podcast Command Stack.
So I think going forward, we got a clean slate for this year, and as tournaments pop up, I'm sure we'll be talking about physical ones and the ones online, how the meta is going to develop over the next year. I think as far as Armada goes, everything's pretty stable, rules-wise, ships-wise. I don't think we're going to see any changes or FAQs to mix things up anytime soon. So, as the episodes come out, we'll talk about, what's hitting the top 8, top 4 at these different tournaments. Especially, we got Adepticon coming, the Richmond Open, some Texas tournaments coming up. And so, we're going to talk about, what you can try at your local store, what kind of lists are coming together, what works good, if anything new comes up. If, people are always trying to jank lists, and things can come out of jank lists that will really mix things up. So especially if you've got a faction you like to play, and you're just getting destroyed into the dirt by onagers all the time, there's always people thinking of really clever ways to counter those. And so we're hoping to bring that information to you, especially after basically a couple of years of a pretty big content drought. as far as like professional play around the United States and the world. So, yeah, anything else to add, Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to say, if you're a casual player out there and you're like, well, this is going to be a tournament podcast and I'm not sure if I want to listen to it, I just ask you to kind of say, like, what's showing up in tournaments is going to be at your casual now. What you, people mimic other people's lists all the time. So, it's a good way to get a sense of, what am I going to have across the table at me when I show up on my Friday night at my game store, or it'll give you ideas, I think, for what the fly inflates. And I do want to say, like, a huge caveat at the very start of this, Armada is very matchup dependent. We get what, we get it. We certainly understand that any amount of analysis that we're going to be doing won't always be able to account for matchups, but where we know the matchups in a tournament, we'll try to talk about that with you. We're going to try to hit the big tournaments that are out there. I know British Nationals is coming up in April. We'll talk about that as well. But if you just have your own tournament out there somewhere, and you have a store a quote unquote store championship, or you have something out there with 10 to 16 players, and you want to, we'd love to talk about your tournament. Send us your list. That'd be really fun for us to do. So send us your list and we'll talk about your tournament for sure.
Okay, going off of that, how can you find us? So it's going to be pretty easy. If you're not already a member of the Ion Radio Discord, you should be. And there's going to be a whole new, I guess it's called channel, right? Whatever, thread, however you want to call it.
Another channel under our collaborator channels.
Yes, and that will be called Command Stack, and you can come talk to all four of us right there about lists. You can ask us questions, you can post comments about things, and you can also ask us questions that you would like us to address on the podcast. Okay, so I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching this intro to the new podcast coming out, Command Stack. Hopefully you turn in and take a listen to it. We'll be posting all over Ion Radio and all over the Discords when it officially gets released. Until next time, I'm John.
I'm Ken.
I'm Garrett.
I'm Ryan.
And you've been watching Ion Radio's Data Link.